Howdy, 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 my name's Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, there were so many Keeters in a row, like, holy shit, why were there that many Keeters in a row? I probably shouldn't have started the episode by cursing, because for all I know there won't be any cursing in it, but too late now. So, in this episode we're going to be starting with auto-interrogation, and going to try to make our way to Ascendance, which looks like less than 5 entries, but I'm pretty sure that's how counting works. So, auto-interrogation it is, and it neutralized. Huh. Haven't seen this before. Interesting. The remains of 356 are to be kept continuously frozen in long-term No. I was about to say, wait, what is this? The Walt Disney one? But I don't know what number the Walt Disney is. Long-term Biological Storage Unit 73A at Site 23. Staff are advised that SCP-356 has been a person of interest to the government of the United States, the Russian Federation, and the Republic of Azerbaijan since 1986. As such, liaisons to the Foundation serving with these nations or affiliated entities are to be kept unaware of 356 containment in 1986 and death in 1987. Update. Except for approved research purposes, no electronic device capable of receiving telephone calls are to be brought within 10 meters of him. So, 356 is a deceased 62-year-old male human of Eurasian descent, measuring 1.76 meters tall and weighing 81.5 kilograms. I don't know how tall that is. Let's see how tall that is. Because I am a filthy American and I do not understand the metric system. And it just went straight to yards. Okay, let's try that again. Feet. He's 5'7". Alright. You're weighing 81 kilograms. When 356 is within approximately 3 meters of any device capable of receiving a telephone call, such as traditional land-based telephones, cell phones, or computer terminals with software enabling telephony. Okay. They could have said telephonics. Telephonics would have been a more fun word to look at. The device will begin receiving a constant stream of calls. Left unanswered, these calls will continue for an indefinite period, only ceasing when answered and resuming once the speaker hangs up. What if the cell phone's dead? In all observed cases, attempts to track the source of telephone calls related to the presence of 356 have all identified the device receiving the calls itself as the origination point. So, the phones. When telephone calls prompted by the presence of 356 are answered, an unknown entity, 356A, speaking in a voice exactly matching that of 356 will answer. Left to speak on its own, A will talk about general information regarding 356, mostly focused on work history or professional relationships. A will also describe what it considers to be the mental state of 356, and will sometimes state what it claims 356 is thinking about. And what does that little number 1 mean? While the claims A makes in this regard are inherently unverifiable, measured stress indicators in 356 support the hypothesis that A has some degree of insight into the subject's mind. 356 was recovered along with 12 other persons, 12,348 pages of files, 3 computers, and 115 hours of video recordings after the April 1st, 1986 Foundation raid on a CIA safe house in Blank as part of an Operation Catwalk. According to including 356, blank objects recovered from this operation later received SCP classification, so anywhere from 1 to 9. Experiment log. Okay. Over a period of 11 months, a series of experiments documenting anomalous phenomena relating to 356 were conducted by research staff. In each instance, a standard landline telephone terminal and observation chamber was activated in the presence of 356. All conversations took place using speaker functionality. Transcripts have been translated by staff from Azerbaijani to English for the purposes of this file. Experiment E5611A. Date: July 29th, 1986. Upon opening of the telephone line, following 137 unanswered calls, a voice exactly matching that of 356 is heard on the line. No attempted conversation is initiated. A states background information on 356 such as biometric data, known associates, and a detailed history of 356 record as an operative in the Azerbaijan SSR division of the Soviet KGB. This information is later verified to be completely accurate. Select a transcript. Our blank joined up with his current handlers in Baku in the fall of 1976 and was assigned publicly as an adjunct at the Turkish embassy. But of course that wasn't really the purpose of any of it. NATO and the Turks weren't privy to what was happening under the cover of the refinery. Only Kolia, the directorate on our side, and the Americans. Isn't that right, blank? Experiment 18G. September 2nd, 86. Researchers answer the phone, then proceed to ask 356 details of the operations of the Frontier Energy Consulting Limited, a known at the time of the experiment KGB front company operating in Baku. A response with information describing 356's role in overseeing Frontier Energy activities, which primarily consists of industrial espionage. Information is later verified to be accurate. Please describe the operation you were responsible for in Baku. No response. You're never going to accomplish anything that way. Hey, blank. What should we talk about? We could talk about all those meetings near the docks, but I don't think that's what the agent here is referring to. Or perhaps the reason for that 21-month stretch in Jagurka. There's a tale to tell. No response. Oh, is that what's troubling you? You have no idea why they're asking, do you? Is that so much worse than last time? I don't see any hammers or car batteries in here, do you? When do you think they'll show their hand? If they could take you from them, what must they have up their sleeves? I'd be nervous too. It's a joke. So, no description for our friends of how you set up that company to get a look inside the Absheron refinery? How you labored for months assembling counterfeit inspection equipment that would hide the real equipment? What you did with the men that were sent to poke around the offices? Maybe that should talk about what we did. Or maybe that should be what we did. I can never tell. Experiment 26K, February 11th, 87. They answer phone calls engendered by the presence of 356 and attempt to question A about its nature and origins, resulting in conclusive information as is unverifiable, as 356 is either incapable or unwilling to provide information concerning A. Are you the same individual as 356? What's the voice on the telephone? Your voice? Is it you? If all you were to someone was a distant presence at the end of a line somewhere, can they be said to have known you? Met you? Look at me, talking when I don't know things. When did you first come into existence? These are quite silly, you know? Do you remember being born? Maybe you should try asking Blank. He might have some pictures somewhere. He'll probably tell you where they're stashed if you ask him when he's in the 1M box. He has a strained relationship with tight, confined spaces. So you have no information on this subject. I can certainly tell you Blank and I were formally introduced by our mutual friends, but then you already knew that. You came knocking on their door. Transcript section expunged. Can you make contact independent of 356? You'd like to know that, wouldn't you? Ask Blank. Oh wait, you did already. I'd help more, but, you know, I helped so much already. I have to do at least a little work here. Okay, let's see what this one says. Blank blank. Evidence gathered in the aftermath of the catwalk action suggests that the unconventional humanite program of which 356 was a part has been adopted in other areas of the United States military and intelligence apparatus. Further investigation is blank 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 blank. Current recommendation is to implement full denial of resource protocols for all personnel who are likely to come into contact with the United States government entities in future missions, especially those involved in the forthcoming project blah 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 blah. Probably resurrection? That looks long enough to be the word resurrection. Maybe. Okay, so, Addendum 1. On August the 9th, 1987, 356 suffered an acute myocardial infarction leading to cardiac arrest and heart failure. Foundation medical staff were unable to revive him, resulting in the clinical death later that day. 356 reclassified from Euclid to neutralize effective August 11th, 1987. On April the 15th, 2009, a maintenance worker in long-term biological storage unit 73A reported that their personal cell phone was receiving repeated, unremitting calls from an unknown source. After reviewing case histories, research staff traced the cause of this phenomenon to the remains of 356. Researchers answered the phone for documentation purposes, however no voice was discernible on the line. Background noise was consistent with significant wind or other air movement were present, as well as static interference. After ending the phone call, the cellular phone continued receiving calls of a similar nature until it was removed from long-term biological storage unit 73. Request for additional experimentation and reclassification of object class is pending. Well, that's spooky. Next up is the Hungry Clay? That sounds creepy. But it was safe and is now Euclid, so probably creepy. How creepy? Well, a 10-kilogram seed sample of 357 is to be contained within a hermetically sealed container within a 3x3x3 meter room at Site 19. It's at Site 19, so it's probably terrifying. Samples are moved from the container not to exceed 1 kilogram. A detailed log must be kept of all 357 that is produced, complete with accurate records of what had been used to feed it, and how much of the sample was subsequently destroyed via compression. The mass of the container is to be monitored electronically. Changes in mass that are not accounted for by removal or return of samples will result in an automatic lockdown of that section of Site-19, as this indicates that a breach of the container may have occurred. Unless provided Level 4 approval, researchers are not to expose 357 to temperatures exceeding 100 centimeters... my bad, 100 degrees Celsius. Wow. The amount exposed to these temperatures is never to be greater than 1 millimeter cubed under any circumstances. So then, SCP-357 is a malleable substance with a density of 250 kilograms per meter cubed. The material has been found to reflect all radiation with 100% efficiency. To date, chemical analysis of 357 has yielded no conclusive results. Electron microscopy of 357 has shown no inherent granularity at any level. These two latter results suggest that 357 may not be atomic in nature. However, there have been no satisfactory hypotheses as to how baryonic matter is able to interact with it. When permitted to physically interact with 357, researchers describe it as... Sorry, I thought I saw a cat outside my window again. Researchers describe it as having a consistency similar to that of Play-Doh brand modeling compound. However, unlike Play-Doh, 357 will not retain its shape for any length of time if left at rest. It will settle at a rate of approximately 0.5 centimeters per minute until it reproduces the shape of the inside of its container. It will form a meniscus inside the container 7.5 centimeters high. What's that word? Meniscus. The curved upper surface of liquid in a tube. A lens is convex on one side and concave on the other, or a thin fibrous cartilage between the surfaces of some joints. It's probably this one. So, the thickness of the substance at the top of the meniscus is 1 millimeter, at which point it merges with the surface of the container following a Gaussian curve. If allowed to settle on a flat surface, 357 will spread until its average thickness is no more than a millimeter. The edge of the mass follows the same Gaussian function that's seen in the meniscus. If solid matter is placed in a container of 357, it will sink into the substance at a constant rate of 0.5 centimeters per minute. 357 will displace the appropriate volume as any other fluid would. If the solid object is fully absorbed by 357, it will become impossible to distinguish between it and the substance of 357. Theories range from the object taking on the properties of 357 to the object being replaced by a corresponding volume of it. If a homogeneous pressure of at least 100 newtons per centimeter squared is applied to a sample of 357, the material will decrease in size at a rate of 1.3 centimeters squared per minute or more, depending on the magnitude of the pressure. When compressed in this manner, the density of 357 does not change. Rather, the mass decreases at the same rate as the volume. Where the excess mass goes is presently unknown. If compressed to approximately 1 millimeter cubed at room temperature, no amount of force is able to decrease the size any further. Application of vacuum pressure does not increase the size of a sample of 357. The only method found for increasing its mass is via the encapsulation of a volume. Addendum 1. 357 was initially produced by a cyclotron in 19-something at data expunged. The responsible researchers at the university were given a Class B amnesiac with the exception of Dr. Blank Blank, who had been granted Level 2 clearance that allowed to do further research on 357. To date, the results of the initial experiment that produced 357 cannot be reproduced. As a precaution, particle physics laboratories and particle colliders are periodically monitored for similar discoveries. That sounds like it's, I can't remember the name of it. It's the goo that can eat anything in the universe. I cannot remember the name of what that goo was called. I know there was a game of it, and I know that Markiplier and Jacksepticeye have played it, but I cannot remember. Something matter? I don't know, gray goo? One of those. Anyway, Addendum 2. 357 is pending review for use and disposal of hazardous objects being held by the Foundation. And according to 05 somebody, until the properties of 357 are more concretely understood, particularly in high energy environments, approval is being withheld. It is already clear that 357 should not be exposed to some objects due to risk of unlimited expansion of the material. Then 3. Some personnel have been caught smoking indoors and exhaling into 357 in an attempt to hide the evidence. This is heavily discouraged due to security considerations, health issues, and risk of accidental ingestion. File photos of experiments 3 and 4 are freely available to those who continue to practice this abuse of Foundation property. I wonder what those were. Well, I guess we're going to find out. Let's see. Experiment 1, a ping pong ball. It is allowed to absorb the ball fully while sitting in an electronic scale. The ball sinks into the mass. When the last of the ball disappears, the scale reports an increase in mass of 5.6 grams, equivalent to the difference between the ping pong ball's mass and that of the equivalent volume of 357. Experiment 2. They put 357 into more 357. So, probably. A sample of 357 is molded into a box and placed upon an electronic scale. Before being allowed to set, the lid of the box, also molded from 357, is placed on it. A mass increase is detected exceeding the mass of the lid. My section of the box shows that it is now a solid mass of 357. Okay, so was it an empty box they molded it into, or just... I don't know. One healthy Relatus norvegicus. It's probably just a rat. It's falling out. Brown rat. That is a hilariously fancy name for a brown rat, whereas foxes are just Vulpus vulpus. Relatus norvegicus. Let me stop before I summon something. A 5mm cubed sample of 357 is placed inside the rat's food. The rat is to be monitored for 24 hours after ingestion, or until death, at which point it is to be dissected. 1 hour after ingestion, 357 is observed to be eliminated from the rat's digestive system. Soon after, the subject exhibits a pain response. The pain is observed to increase over time. Though the mass of the animal does not change, an increasing amount of 357 is eliminated from its body, concluding with a continuous stream after 3 hours. Death occurs within minutes of this event. Dissection reveals that the entire digestive tract has been converted into 357, along with a number of surrounding organs. Death is believed to have been caused by blood loss. Okay. Another healthy Relatus norvegicus. Procedure is identical to 357-3. Subject provided an intravenous supply of blood to prevent premature death. Observations up to the 3-hour mark match those of 3. The stream of 357 extruded from the rat continues at a steady rate. After 30 more minutes, the subject becomes increasingly lethargic. 15 minutes later, death occurs. Dissection shows that much of the rat's viscera had been replaced with 357. Ow, bumped into my keyboard. Along with a significant portion of its muscle mass. Cause of death is determined to be due to conversion of part of the cardiac muscle into 357. Okay, so I guess the reason that these two experiments are visible to the guys because they're like, hey, so if y'all keep breathing smoke into this SCP and get some of the SCP into yourself, you will turn into the SCP, so quit your shit. Anyway, 357 in cryonic conditions. Procedure is placed in liquid helium environment and mechanically compressed. Details: a pressure of 100 newtons by centimeters squared is applied. The sample is able to be compressed to only 0.01 millimeters cubed. While still compressed, the sample is allowed to return to room temperature. When pressure is removed, the sample immediately returns to a volume of 1 millimeter cubed. Okay, cool. Experiment 6, high temperature conditions. Compressed to 1 millimeter cubed while at room temperature, mechanism is then placed in a 1000 degree centimeter environment and then release the sample. At a temperature of 750, inside the compression mechanism, 357 expands with sufficient force to damage it. 40 meters cubed of 357 is produced within 10 seconds, fully engulfing the furnace, $50,000 worth of equipment, and 2 researchers. After 1 hour, the volume of the sample decreases to the equivalent of the absorbed matter. Once object class changed from safe to Euclid. No further high-energy experiments are permitted unless it can be definitively shown that a repeat of the incident will not occur. Okay. Last experiment. Subject 357. A 1 millimeter cubed sample of it is placed in a 40 meter cubed container. The ambient temperature is steadily increased in order to determine the material's rate of expansion from an application of thermal energy. The experiment is still pending level 4 approval. Models of expansion and further information regarding safety procedures are needed from Dr. or somebody before a decision can be made. So it sounds like that's something they want to do, but haven't yet. Okay. So, now it's time for a deserted hospital, because it's totally actually a deserted hospital. It's Euclid, it's probably full of ghosts or some shit. So, due to the mental side effects of 358, boom, right there. Half a sentence into it, and it already messes up the brain. Okay, moving on. It is to be kept locked at all times except during testing, and all windows are to remain boarded, with regular guard patrols to ensure that no unauthorized entry occurs, so they will shoot you if you try to go into the mentally breaking hospital that's totally deserted and not full of ghosts or anything. Right. The entirety of the building should be sealed airtight, and any leaks reported immediately along with any signs of forced entry. Anyone found inside the building with reasons other than testing should be evacuated immediately and held for questioning and observation. I'm frankly shocked that they don't just cap them in the face, because that seems to be their go-to when confronted with something that's not supposed to be happening. Anyway, SCP-358 is an abandoned trauma center located on the outskirts of some place in England. The grounds surrounding the building are overgrown with vegetation native to the area and characteristic of extreme neglect, as plants do. The building's exterior is weathered but otherwise intact, with windows and entrances boarded up to prevent trespassing and vandalism. Air inside is arid, measuring an average at 45 degrees Celsius, with hotter, dry gusts of air that blow through the hallways from no discernible source. Exploration and monitoring has revealed anomalous activity characteristic of typical Type 3 pseudo-spiritual manifestation. I called it. I said it was ghosts, and I was just being stupid, but damn if I didn't call that. Anyway, ranging from glowing spheres to full-bodied apparitions, all of which appear exhausted and on occasion ask for water. So they're ghosts that think they're haunting a desert? Recognizable apparitions appear to be individuals who have been exposed to 358 beyond the average 47-minute psychological recoverability point in the past. The majority of these subjects reside in Foundation psychological observation facilities, and security footage shows them present in their respective units during the appearance of their apparitions within 358. Wait, so they're not ghosts per se, for some reason that I'm sure we're going to find out. If you leave people in this hospital for longer than 47 minutes and then you take them away, their ghosts just sort of stay? Well, we'll find out. In the majority of cases, blank percent, individuals within 358 experience a sense of disorientation upon entering the building, which slowly diminishes over time spent within 358. Additionally, they report a growing sense of thirst, which begins to coincide with the physical symptoms suggestive of extreme dehydration and heat exhaustion. These symptoms are not alleviated by hydration, even using a direct intravenous drip. As exposure time continues, the exposed individual will show a slowly increasing degree of mental degradation typical of heat stroke, which leads to an exponentially increasing degree of dissociative disorder. On average, no affected individual remaining within 358 is considered psychologically recoverable beyond 47 minutes of exposure. The remaining blank percent of subjects exposed to 358 are unaffected, but are to be kept under observation to monitor for possible later development of effects. On rare occasions, affected subjects within 358 expire suddenly of apparent poisoning. Autopsy in these cases always reveals the venom of one or more common North American desert-dwelling predators in the bloodstream, normally that of Crotalus atrox, the western diamondback rattlesnake. That is also a really cool scientific name for an animal, Crotalus atrox, also rattlesnake. So, 358 was discovered by the SCP Foundation on blank 1983 when two males, 20 and 22, were apprehended for trespassing after being found wandering its premises unaware of their surroundings by local law enforcement. Medical examination revealed only physical side effects similar to exposure to a desert setting. The psychological evaluations of each person revealed a loss of mental capacity regarding self-identification and location. So they found them and they're like, who am I? Where am I? What's happening? A follow-up of a CT scan revealed nothing out of the ordinary. The police and medical reports were collected by SCP Foundation personnel, which led to the current testing of 358. So, Addendum 1. Testing supervisors log blank 19-something, 30 minutes. Test subject is female, blank years of age, something foot something, with an athletic build. Upon entry, observes the climate is hot and dry. Upon exiting, appeared dazed and was observed to be suffering from slight dehydration. Subject also brought attention to the sand in her shoes. The sand was then collected for further testing purposes. Next up, an hour for some guy, something years of age, he's slightly overweight, and something foot something. Enter the building as in previous tests, remarking on the hot. Further exploration revealed a layout not unlike any other hospital from the region and period. Upon exiting 358, they began questioning who and where they were. Medical testing revealed that the subject was suffering from dehydration, and they were provided water to replenish lost fluids. Sand was recovered from test subject's shoes. They recovered fully in all areas except their mental state and remained in Psychological Observation Facility A. Okay, 2 hours. Male, blank years of age, something foot something, wiry stature. As in other testing, hot, dry. They were told to examine the rooms. 1 hour into the test, they began complaining of dehydration and appeared slightly confused. After 2 hours, communication from the test subject stopped, and disposable dudes were sent in to retrieve them. Disposable dude located them in a room near the entrance unconscious and was recovered. Regained consciousness soon after administration of an IV drip. Upon awakening, they were observed to be in a persistent vegetative state, unable to function, and subsequently admitted to psychological observation facility A. Blood tests revealed trace amounts of a highly poisonous rattlesnake venom found in white victims of the desert of Southern California. As noted in Addenda 358-1 and 2, subject shoes were filled with sand. I would like to remind everyone at this point that they are in England. So, on blank, security patrols captured video footage of a humanoid apparition in the North Hall of 358 begging for water. Comparison of video footage confirms that the apparition appears to exhibit mannerisms and appearance identical to test subject C, whose test results are noted in Addendum 3. C remains unresponsive in psychological observation facility A and demonstrated no change in behavior during the event. Okay, so that sounds to me like, if you stay in this place for at least 2 hours, it steals your soul. That's kind of how it sounds like this is. So, yeah. Deserted hospital. Or was the joke not that the hospital is empty, but because it's a desert? Its name is a pun. It's a fucking pun. It's a pun because desert, deserted, it's empty, and it's hot like a desert, sand in the shoes, son of a bitch. So, moving on. The Hawk. Oh, alright. That looks creepy. So, 358 is to be contained within a 30 meter concrete structure. The structure is not to be entered between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. local standard time. Any monitoring of 359 during these hours is to be done via security cameras installed within the structure. I'm gonna just go ahead and assume that if you show up at 10:01 p.m. it'll eat you. Let's find out. 358 is to be fed 1 adult pig every day. That confirms my theory a little bit. Acceptable substitutions to this diet must be cleared with Agent Blank and Dr. Blank. All remnants of 359's prey are to be completely cleaned out of the containment structure by 8:45 p.m. the following day. Why, did they come to life? Why can there not just be bones? I wouldn't want to go in there to clean up the bones of a pig that a weird, not real hawk keeps eating. So, it appears to be a metal sculpture of a red-tailed hawk, Butel Jamaicensis. These are such cool names. I wonder if there's like a pronunciation. Pronunciation. Hold on, Butel Jamaicensis. I don't think there's going to be a pronunciation. The website called Birdweb, though. That sounds interesting. With a wingspan of approximately 4.3 meters, perched atop a 12-meter arc. During daylight hours, approximately 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. local standard time, it displays no sign of movement and does not respond to any external stimuli. However, it has been determined by the Foundation that between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m., it displays the typical behaviors of an adult red-tailed hawk. Apart from being nocturnal, 359 is apparently capable of flight. The mechanisms through which it applies this have not been determined, as its wings are too short to allow for flight. I don't know, it looks like they could pull it off. 359 was originally located just south of someplace in the United States. It first came to the Foundation's attention when local foresters began finding dead bodies of white-tailed deer, Odocoileus virginianus. Okay, I know I'm saying that right, I'm not going to say it again. In the area within 1 kilometer radius of the sculpture, which looked to have been preyed upon. The white-tailed deer has no natural predators in the state of blank. That could be Ohio. It's not a very long name for a state. Investigation officially began on data expunged when motorists on the stretch of state route something that passes by 359 reported that the hawk was not on top of the arch. On the same day, a local farmer reported finding the sculpture in his field, standing over the body of one of his cows, which had injuries consistent with predation by a large bird of prey. The farmer was administered a Class A amnesiac and fed the story that the cow had died of natural causes and its body eaten by coyotes. Route Blank was closed for repairs, and SCP-359 was transferred to its current containment site and replaced with an immobile replica. Let's see, Addendum 1. Prior to containment, no evidence existed that 359 had ever attempted to prey on anything besides hoofed mammals. However, since being contained, it has attacked, killed, and eaten 4 disposable dudes who entered its containment structure during restricted hours. Investigation into the cause of this shift in dietary preferences is ongoing. I mean, like, It's a giant hawk made of metal that eats cows. What did you think it was going to do when 4 people walked into its territory? Giant hawk that eats cows. Totally not going to attack humans. Nope, no sir, that's not what'll happen at all. Now it's time for a sentence. What's a sentence? It's Euclid. Foundation agents embedded in airport security and sky marshal agencies worldwide are to monitor air travelers and chartered flights for suspected activity related to 360. Individuals suspected of attempting 360. What? Are to be detained, questioned, and administered a Class A amnestic. How come sometimes it's amnestic and other times it's amnesiac? I've noticed this for a while. I mean, this is episode 87, and they've just been going back and forth between being called amnestics and amnesiacs, and I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but it literally just happened. Anyway, all items related to the activation of 360 are to be confiscated for research. In confirmed cases of 360 activation, Foundation response teams are to enact media suppression and prevent dissemination of knowledge pertaining to the incident. Flight crew and passenger witnesses are to be administered to Class B amnestic and given a cover story. So, 360 is an anomalous ritual that ostensibly allows a single living human subject to ascend to a higher plane of existence. When performed at an altitude of 10,500 meters or higher, affected subjects emit a blinding light and a burst of high-energy radiation for several seconds, then disappear. The radiation dosage is negligible and does not pose any long-term danger to affected individuals. However, due to the altitude required for successful activation, 360 has resulted in numerous aviation incidents involving both public and private aircraft. When questioned, numerous witnesses of 360 activation events, particularly those identifying as devout religious adherents, have reportedly experienced auditory and/or visual hallucinations consistent with their religious beliefs. These have taken the form of seeing the affected subject with luminescent wings or a halo prior to disappearance, music with no identifiable source, religious iconography or imagery, or a feeling that they were in the vicinity of a powerful presence. To date, no individual has successfully performed 360 who has performed it has ever been recovered. Investigation log. Following thorough interrogation of individuals detained prior to a successful activation of 360, it has been determined that in every case that knowledge of 360 has been disseminated through a multi-page letter sent to the individual's residence. Either I read that wrong or I'm confused. Anyway, this letter reportedly contains self-help information, instructions for performing 360, as well as a final message encouraging the reader to forward the contents on to other interested individuals. The vast majority of interrogated individuals had already forwarded the letter, but on blank, one instance was successfully contained by members of Mobile Task Force Alpha 4, the Pony Express, prior to mail pickup by local postal employees. The contents of the handwritten letter, which have been determined to be non-anomalous, are as follows. To whom it may concern. Faith is real, but devotion is a myth. God exists. In fact, all gods exist. They are real, and their power is real, but the motivations are childish and petulant. Whether you believe in salvation, transcendence, or reincarnation, these are but hoops in the petty games that they would have you believe are to be necessary. Real peace is found within you, and no priest or rabbi can tell you otherwise. When you learn to accept and love yourself, that's when the world finally falls into place and the truth becomes clear. Let go of the empty words pretending to guide you to true happiness. Let the world fade away around you and embrace the power within yourself. From those who have gone before to those who are about to come, we are here waiting. Not as gods or angels, but as brothers and sisters. The remainder of the document describes the 2 items required for successful activation of 360, as well as the procedure required to complete the ritual. You'll need a token. Something from a loved one, a gift from a child, a flower from a spouse, or a toy from a parent, something that means something to you. You will need to mix a potion. The ingredients are simple, but need to be precise. 50 milliliters of purified water, 1 crushed mint leaf, 5 grams of dried willow bark, 3 milliliters of tea tree oil, 500 milligrams of aspirin, redacted, combine ingredients and simmer over a low heat until it turns luminous gold. Fly! Lift yourself above the highest peaks where the air is thin and the heavens are close. Angels and demons may be the messengers of the usurpers, but they have wings for a reason. Hold your token close to your heart. Remember how you felt when it was given. Cherish that feeling and let it grow within you. Drink the potion. Let it numb the body and free your spirit. Read these words, redacted. Be free. Pass this on to those who need it. You know who they are, and you have always wished that there was more you could do to help. They will find you and thank you for it. That's a promise. Due to the continued occurrence of incidents confirmed or suspected to be related to 360, it is suspected that additional instances of this documentation remain uncontained. Alpha 4 is continuing to monitor postal services for instances and contain them as they become identified. So, that's interesting. That one threw me for a loop. It made it sound like a sentence was just people like learning how to fly or doing something to airplanes, but nope! It's they get into airplanes and then ascend to a higher plane of existence. A higher plane of existence. Haha! More puns! So, this has been Anashi Sasuke. This is episode 87, I think, of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki, and the next episode will be starting with Bronze Liver and all that entails, and reaching for Pool Noodle. Because Pool Noodles are fun. I had a sword fight with a Pool Noodle once. So, if you liked it, a like and a subscribe would be groovy. If you didn't, you need to do either one of those things, and I will see you in the next one. Later!